Hi, good evening. We are now midway of the book Hail Holy Queen, Mother of God in the Word of God by Scott Hahn. It seems Scott Hahn is focusing on Revelation 12, proclaiming the Mother of God, Mary, as the Ark of the Covenant. I must say personally that before I used to just, recite the litany of the Blessed Virgin Mary saying Tower of David, House of Gold, Health of the Sick, Ark of the Covenant without really understanding much about what is Ark of the Covenant. But now, reading the book really helped me or helps me understand better what is the meaning, the deeper meaning behind Ark of the Covenant. So let's proceed. I'm going to take up two parts, two subtitles of the main title, which is The Power Behind the Throne, the two subtitles being The Queen Mother and the Davidic King, and the second one is I Dream of Genealogy. The Queen Mother and the Davidic King. We've seen in both John's Gospel and the book of Revelation how the redemptive work of Jesus fulfills many types or foreshadowings in the book of Genesis. The primal creation foreshadowed the renewal and redemption of creation by Jesus Christ in Revelation 21, verse 5. The Garden of Eden was a type of the Garden of Gethsemane. The tree in Eden foreshadowed the wood of the cross. Adam was a type of Jesus Christ. Eve was a type of the Blessed Virgin Mary. In examining Revelation 12, however, we also glimpsed other patterns of typology. One pattern, considering Mary as the Ark of the Covenant, inevitably leads us back to Moses, who sojourned with Israel in the desert for 40 years. Following Moses, Israel conquered by the blood of the Lamb in Revelation 12, verse 11, when they ransomed their firstborn at the first Passover. In the same way, the new Israel conquered by the blood of the Lamb, Jesus Christ, who is the new Moses, the new lawgiver. Following this pattern, we can also see that Moses' sister, whose name was Miriam, Mary, was like Eve, a failed matriarch, giving in to idolatry and rebellion against God's appointed authority. In the new covenant, however, a new Miriam would fulfill the type and model perfect obedience. Still, perhaps a more striking pattern of typology is to be found in the kingdom of David. It was David's kingdom that gave ancient Israel its vision of the kingdom of the Messiah. The second Hebrew king, David, unified the 12 tribes and established Jerusalem as the nation's capital and spiritual center. The people revered David for his righteousness, justice, and faithfulness to the Lord. David's successors, however, never quite lived up to their forefathers' virtue. Whereas David unified the nation, later kings instilled resentment among the tribes. Resentment eventually led to revolt and the dissolution of the unified kingdom of Israel. Weakened Israel was then more vulnerable to its foreign enemies. In time, the land was overrun by Babylonian invaders, its people taken into captivity, and David's line completely wiped out, or almost completely. Zedekiah, the last Davidic king, was made to watch while the Chaldeans, his enemies, executed all his sons, Then they gouged out Zedekiah's eyes so that the last image etched in his memory would be the corpses of his sons and the apparent end of the Davidic dynasty. See 2 Kings 25, verse 7. Yet, through exile and all the ups and downs of their subsequent history, the people of Israel would look back to the kingdom of David as an ideal and look forward to its future completion with the coming of the Messiah, God's anointed priest king. Even in Jesus' day, the Pharisees did not hesitate to identify the Messiah as the son of David in Matthew 22, verse 42. For the Lord had promised David that a king in his line would one day rule all the nations, and he would reign forever. I will raise up your offspring after you, who shall come forth from your body, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he shall be my son. From 2 Samuel 7, verses 12 to 14. We find the promise cited in the Psalms as well. The Lord swore to David a sure oath from which he will not turn back. One of the sons of your body I will set on your throne. Their sons also forever shall sit upon your throne. For the Lord has chosen Zion for his habitation. This is my dwelling place forever. In Psalms 132, verses 11 to 13. The prophets expressed Israel's combination of nostalgia and longing, and they foretold the Messiah's coming with amazing accuracy. Even before the time of Zedekiah, Isaiah foretold that David's line, the family tree of David's father Jesse, would be reduced to a stump. But from that stump would come forth a shoot, a branch, the Messiah. Isaiah 11, verse 1. Hear then, O house of David, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. From Isaiah 7, verses 13 to 14. Next section. I dream of genealogy. The very first words of the New Testament fulfill the promise of the prophets and the longing of Israel. The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David. From the beginning, Matthew identifies Jesus as the son of David, the long-awaited Messiah. Yet he does this in an odd, almost unprecedented way. Though a genealogy was traditionally a chronicle of male succession, Matthew anomalously incorporates the names of 4 women. These women, moreover, all fall far from Israel's ideal of purity, moral or racial. The first mentioned is Tamar in Matthew 1, verse 3, a Canaanite woman who had sexual relations with her father-in-law, from Genesis 38, verses 15 to 18. The second is Rahab, a prostitute and a pagan Canaanite, from Matthew 1, verse 5, and from Joshua 2, verses 1 to 24. The third is Ruth, another pagan, a Moabite, in Matthew 1, verse 5. And the last, significantly, is Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah, the Hittite, in Matthew 1, verse 6. It is Bathsheba, of course, who committed adultery with King David. Matthew seems to flout the rules by listing women in Jesus' genealogy, but he is actually doing something clever, a preemptive apologetic strike. By placing women, and pagan women of shady reputation, among Jesus' ancestors, Matthew effectively undercuts the arguments of anyone who would question Jesus' messianic credentials. For surely the evangelist knew that the claim of Jesus' virginal conception would evoke wry smiles from skeptics. And it certainly did. Jesus is called a bastard in several places in the Talmud, and the title Son of Mary itself was probably a slut. The Jewish custom was to call a man son of his father. Only a fatherless man would be called son of his mother. Yet Matthew almost dares his fellow Jewish readers to raise questions about Jesus' ancestry. Because if Jews derided Jesus as son of Mary, then King Solomon, the prototypical son of David, would lose 4 times over. For Solomon shared those same female ancestors with Jesus, and the last of them, Bathsheba, was Solomon's own mother. Matthew is safeguarding Jesus' messianic credentials. At the same time, he is showing the divine handiwork in the virginal conception. Without the Davidic matrix, the kingdom, the promise, and the prophecies, no one can truly understand the coming of Christ. The evangelist continues this oblique line of argument by quoting Isaiah's prediction about the virginal conception of Emmanuel, God with us, in Matthew 1, verse 23. A few lines later, when Matthew recounts Jesus' birth in Bethlehem, the city of David, he cites Micah 5, verse 2, "And you, O Bethlehem, from you shall come a ruler who will govern my people Israel," in Matthew 2, verse 6. Finally, concluding his infancy narrative, Matthew depicts the Holy Family setting in a city called Nazareth. 2, verse 23. The root of the word Nazareth is netzer, or branch, and branch was the name that Isaiah gave to the Messiah, who would spring up one day from the stump of Jesse's tree. Isaiah 11, verse 1. So, tomorrow we will be taking up Seeing Stars, the Queen Mother, maybe on the third section, the Key of David, as last. Or maybe I can finish all of them, if you can bear with me. Thank you for now. Good night.